Hello, and welcome to Hopwood Hall. Now, as many of you know, due to health and safety, we're very limited on how many people we can take through the hall. So, today we have created a 360 tour for you to be able to visit select rooms within the hall and take a look around. Now, you can do this on your favorite device, whether it be a laptop, your mobile phone, or for the fully immersive experience, a VR headset. Make sure it's up to date, downloaded with the latest YouTube app, and take a look through these rooms, up, down, and all around. It's super cool, and I know you'll love it. And just be sure to spend time looking at the details. For instance, if you're passing through this room, you might notice over here is an old gas mask from World War I or World War II. The hall is full of discoveries like that, so I hope you enjoy it. But before you start on your tour, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the bell to be alerted about our latest content.
Welcome to the first part of the tour. If you experience any technical difficulties, such as a drop in quality, please see the pinned comment in the comments section. The arrows will help to direct you where to look, so feel free to follow them to see extra details as I guide you around the hall. And without further ado, this is the banquet room. Originally built for a wedding of the Hopwood family in the late 1600s, it was later transformed into a grand parlor by Lady Hopwood. If you follow the arrows, you'll see the photograph of the room in its former glory during the late 1800s, filled with furnishings of the period. To the left of the photograph, you'll see the beautiful fireplace, which is currently covered for protection purposes. Above it, a one-of-a-kind beveled mirror. And hanging from the ceiling is an ornate chandelier. You can see the many stunning portraits and paintings which once filled the room. Sadly, all of these furnishings are now lost. During the room's lifetime, it would have hosted many events, functions, and celebrations, including an evening with Chopin playing the piano for guests in this very room. You can imagine the wonderful sound of music, the crowds and applause, with the community coming together in what was once a welcoming hub for the local area. Welcome to the Oak Parlor, one of my favorite rooms in the hall. This is the oldest section of the hall and was built in the 1400s. Originally, it would have been a two-story open hall with a thatched roof and a fire pit in the center. A major feature of the room are the carvings, which date back to the medieval times. And if we move closer to the window, we can see the carvings in detail. They tell 1,000 stories and examine the culture of what life may have been like back then. As you can see, the fireplace is also ornately carved and would have kept many generations warm. Now, if you follow the arrows toward the heart of the room, you can see a photo taken in the late 1800s which shows the extent of the decor. In another photo, you can see a cabinet which would have previously sat here. We hope to track down or find similar pieces to return to the hall. Sadly, you may notice that in comparison, certain wall carvings have been stolen. In our final photo, we can see when this room was being used by the De La Salle brothers when the hall was utilized as a teacher training college. Now we move into the long gallery, which is the main thoroughfare in the hall. This is where the Hopwood family would have showcased family portraits, tapestries, trophies, and works of art from their travels around the world. Take a moment to follow the arrows as we guide you to various vintage photographs of the room. You only have to look between the photographs in the space to see side by side the tragic state of disrepair. However, the restoration of this area is a top priority in our next few stages. This would have been a very busy space, and depending on which century you visited the hall, you would have heard various sounds, including footsteps, carriages approaching the nearby courtyard, and much later in World War II, you may have heard air raid sirens above, as well as typing when the hall was used as a management base of uniform production during the war. And now for a change in era, Hopwood Hall was home to a nightclub. It was transformed in the mid to late 1900s to provide entertainment for the students who attended the De La Salle College. It would have been a popular spot during the 1960s and 70s, where you would have heard a range of notable musicians and lively celebrations which would have often continued into the early hours of the morning. Take a moment to look around the room freely, where you can see various images, including where the bar was once located, a band playing live on stage, and some of the students having fun. We recently interviewed former alumni who attended the nightclub. We discovered some of the incredible artists who graced the stage and heard firsthand some of the hilarious stories of the room. Be sure to check out our recent video in the description below to discover more. And now we visit a corridor next to the nightclub. This was once a service entrance which cut through the core of the hall to reach the servants' quarters, but later was used as an entry point for the nightclub in the 1960s and 70s. This corridor showcases a true juxtaposition of history. On one side, the nightclub. On the other, the remnants of a recently uncovered priest hole where Catholic priests would have hidden to escape persecution. Shall we take a look? Here, we find ourselves inside what would have been quite a claustrophobic and scary place centuries ago. Okay, it's a bit dark in here. If we turn the lights up, that is much better. Still a little bit creepy. In fact, let's put a light to the top of the room. Not so scary now, huh? Now, if you look to your right, you can see where a cupboard would have faced outward, which could be pushed back to provide access into the secret room. Now, if guards unexpectedly arrived at the estate searching for priests, this hiding place could have meant the difference between life and death. This room was discovered when Bob, the hall's caretaker, found a crack in the ceiling below the room, which led to our shocking discovery of the void. We were also amazed to find a religious tabernacle tucked away inside, which had been left behind by the priests from hundreds of years ago. These clues from the past are helping us to solve the history and mystery of this space. If you would like to uncover more about our adventures in the priest hole, be sure to check out our in-depth videos about it on our channel. This is the servants' wing. As you may have seen in our other videos, after recent works where we cleared out collapsing floors and ceilings, you can now see that the second and third floors are exposed. Historically, this would have been a busy, bustling part of the hall which would have powered the estate and would have included kitchens and serving areas and living quarters, housing around 30 staff members. Now, let's follow in the footsteps of many generations of the residents, including the famous poet Lord Byron, as we ascend up this hand-carved staircase from the 1600s and head towards one of the highlights of the house. We're now inside the bedroom where Lord Byron once stayed. This room is especially significant. If you follow the arrows again, you can see that this is perhaps the most visible showcase of the traditional spiritus, which has been dendrodated to the 1400s. Its intricate design of timber framing is both beautiful and structural as it holds up the house. When Lord Byron stayed here as a guest, we can imagine how inspirational this space would have been. It has a beautiful view of the garden and is appointed with an ornately carved fireplace, a perfectly romantic setting for writing his most famous poem, Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, which is believed to have been inspired in the nearby forest. I like to imagine he would have sat by the window, the birds chirping in the distance, and his quill pen inscribing his thoughts on paper. It's ironic to think that Lord Byron may have looked at the timbers on the wall and considered them old when he visited in the 1800s. The room also held a large four-poster canopy bed where Byron slept. If you look towards the side of the room, you can see the outline of where the bed once stood. We've spent a considerable amount of time searching to find the bed. Eventually, we hope that one day we can retrieve it or replace it with something of the same grandeur. This is the upper gallery. The step up into the alcove, surrounded by windows, is where the family would have relaxed before bedtime. This was an intimate space for family and friends and good conversations, and where more personal works of art would have been displayed. This is another guest room, but in the 1950s was transformed into a classroom when the hall was used as an educational facility, as is demonstrated by the chalkboards that are still on the walls. Sadly, this room has been heavily vandalized by intruders. The floor-to-ceiling double bay leaded windows are a unique feature of the room. Now, in true 360 style, we end where we began, the morning room, which would have been used primarily, well, you guessed it, in the morning. Long before the days of text messaging and phones, it would have been very easy to get lost in such a large house as Hopwood Hall. So everyone knew that this was the gathering spot of where to meet first thing in the morning. The large bank of windows faces due east, so as the sun rose, this would have been one of the first places to have light and warmth. It's perfectly positioned for gorgeous sunlight to stream in through the windows in the early hours. Remember, this room was built well before electricity was available in homes, making this the prime location where family and guests would have met for breakfast, to discuss the evening before, and to make their plans for the day ahead. On Christmas morning, this room would have been especially magical. If you look down here, you can see where the floorboards have been removed. This was done as a protective measure to provide airflow to combat dry rot. Now, let's go underneath the floorboards to discover a story of mystery we have yet to solve. If you look around, you can see the dirt which the building was built upon and the brick structure separating the floor from the earth. Years ago, while removing the floorboards, the hall's caretaker, Bob, discovered a pair of shoes hidden away under the floor. Stories and folklore state that shoes found near the hearth of a fireplace were left there to ward off evil spirits. We have yet to confirm the true nature of the shoes found here, so the mystery continues. These shoes are now held at the Rothschild Arts and Heritage Resource Center for safekeeping, but eventually we hope to bring them back to the hall after its restoration. To discover more, please see the recent episode, which is linked in the description below. This tour only covers a handful of the many rooms and stories that fill the walls of Hopwood Hall. We hope you'll join us in the future for more. Now, let's get out from under the floorboards and out into the courtyard where we'll say goodbye, sending you off in your carriage like many centuries of guests before.
I hope you enjoyed your visit here to Hopwood Hall. This was an experiment, so if you'd like to see more VR videos, let us know in the comments below. And if this is your first time joining us, know that we have a whole slew of other YouTube videos to check out. We appreciate your support. Please like, share, subscribe, and click the bell to be alerted about our latest content.